Welcome back, deep divers. Ready for another fascinating plunge into the depths of a complex topic.
Always excited to dive in.
Today, we're tackling something that's both a cultural phenomenon and a source of endless debate. Powerball.
PowerBall. The game that whispers, what if, into millions of years.
Exactly. Those giant jackpots, the daydreams of sudden wealth, it's captivating, to say the least.
It certainly is. And while hitting that jackpot is a long shot, understanding the forces at play behind Powerball is where the real intrigue lies. That's our mission today.
Absolutely. We're not just looking at the surface, we're going deep. And our scuba gear for this dive is a comprehensive overview of Powerball, its history, mechanics, and impact.
We'll be uncovering those hidden depths, the things that casual players might not even realize. From its origins to the stories of those lucky few who actually defied the odds.
So buckle up, listeners, because this deep dive into Powerball is going to be a wild ride. All right, so Powerball. It feels like it's been around forever, this American institution, but it had to start somewhere, right? Like, it was always this massive two-drum spectacle.
You're right, it didn't magically appear fully formed. The roots of Powerball actually go back to 1988 with a game called Lotto America.
Lotto America. Okay, never heard of that one.
Not surprising. It was the precursor, but the real transformation happened in April of 1992 when it rebranded as Powerball, introducing the two-drum system.
Yeah.
This was a game changer, quite literally.
Two drums. Now, for someone like me who just picks numbers and hopes for the best, why was that such a big deal? Two drums instead of one.
Oh, it was ingenious, truly. Think about it. You have two separate sets of numbers. One drum for those main numbers, another for the Powerball. This multiplies the possible combinations exponentially. Makes the jackpot much harder to win.
Oh, so that's why those jackpots get so ridiculously huge. It's all about making it super unlikely, building the suspense.
Precisely. That strategy fueled Powerball's rise. Longer odds, bigger jackpots, more buzz. And that's how those eye-popping, headline-grabbing figures we see today came to be.
Clever, really. And from that first draw back in '92, Powerball has spread like wildfire, hasn't it? Like, how many states are in on this now?
It's gone nationwide, basically. We're talking 45 states, plus Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, and even the U.S. Virgin Islands. That reach is what fuels the massive revenue Powerball generates.
And speaking of massive, remember that $1.586 billion jackpot in January 2016?
Can't forget that. Split three ways even, still mind-blowing.
It really puts the scale of potential winnings into perspective. Hard to even grasp. But let's walk through the basics for anyone who's still a bit fuzzy on how it all works. You up for a quick Powerball 101?
Always ready to learn. Hit me with it.
All right, so you choose 5 main numbers from a pool of 1 to 69. Then you pick one Powerball number, and this one's from a separate pool, 1 to 26. Match all 6. Boom, you've hit the jackpot.
Simple enough. But didn't you mention there are other ways to win besides hitting the jackpot? Absolutely. There are 9 prize tiers in total. Even matching just the Powerball number gets you $4. So while everyone's chasing that giant jackpot, there are smaller wins along the way.
So it's not always an all-or-nothing situation. And what about that power play thing I hear about? What's the deal with that?
Oh, the power play? It's an add-on, an extra dollar on your ticket. But if you win a non-jackpot prize, that prize can get multiplied, sometimes up to 10 times, depending on the power play number that's drawn.
Interesting. Adds another layer of chance, especially if you're not going for the grand prize. Okay, so we've got the history, the how-tos. Now let's get to the heart of the matter. The economics, the societal ripples. Powerball brings in billions, but where does all that money actually go?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Or rather, the multi-billion-dollar question. A significant chunk goes right back to those participating states. Think crucial state programs, education, infrastructure, public services. For example, Massachusetts, in just 1 year, saw a whopping $1.1 billion from their lottery go into local expenditures. That's some serious impact.
That is a lot of money. But on the flip side, we have to talk about the players, those people chasing a dream. The odds of winning. Oh, well, let's just say they're astronomically slim. Something like 1 in 292 million. What's the psychology there, the appeal of such a long shot?
You hit a crucial point. While the fantasy of overnight riches is a powerful motivator, keeping those odds in perspective is vital. And this brings up the concept of what's called the regressive nature of lotteries.
Regressive nature. Can you unpack that a bit for us?
Sure. It means that folks with lower incomes tend to spend a bigger portion of what they have on lottery tickets compared to those with more money to spare. It's a matter of proportion. For someone well off, a $2 ticket is a drop in the bucket. But for someone struggling, that's a much larger chunk of their budget.
Makes you think about the fairness of it all. Who's actually contributing to those massive revenue streams? And that leads us to the criticisms, right? Like, is Powerball really a good thing, economically speaking?
Exactly. The criticisms go beyond just those long odds. Only about 50% to 60% of the ticket sales actually end up back in players' pockets as prizes. The rest covers operating costs, retailer commissions, and the state's profit. Critics argue this disproportionately impacts lower-income individuals, taking more from those who can least afford it. There's this tension between public funding and the burden on certain segments of the population.
It's a complicated equation, that's for sure. It's not just about the thrill of winning, but the broader economic picture. But beyond the numbers, Powerball's become a cultural touchstone, hasn't it? Like when those jackpots go sky high, everyone's talking about it. It's news, it's water cooler talk.
It absolutely has. Those massive jackpots capture the national imagination. It goes beyond a game and becomes this shared experience. We're all captivated by that remote possibility of unimaginable wealth. And then, of course, there are the winner stories. Tales of generosity, cautionary tales of sudden riches gone wrong.
They become these modern fables, don't they? Part of our cultural narrative. Makes you wonder why those stories resonate so strongly with us.
It really does. It's a
Yeah.
question worth pondering. Okay, so we've talked about where the money comes from. Let's break down specifically where those billions actually end up. We touched on it earlier, but what's the typical distribution?
Yeah, let's get into the nuts and bolts of that. Where does each slice of the pie go?
Right, so the biggest chunk, usually 50% to 60%, goes right back into prize payouts. That covers everything from those giant jackpots to those smaller tier wins. Then a big portion, something like 30% to 40%, goes straight to the state governments. This is the fuel for those programs we talked about earlier. Education, infrastructure, public services, and of course the retailers selling those tickets get their cut, a percentage of their sales. Keeps them in the game.
And then there are the operational costs, right? Running a massive lottery isn't free.
Right. About 10% goes to covering those administrative expenses, things like printing tickets, marketing, this whole logistical side of those drawings. So each dollar spent on a Powerball ticket gets divided up across those different areas.
So it's not as if all the money disappears into some black hole. And it's interesting that each state gets to decide how they spend their share. Like there's no federal rule book dictating where that money goes.
Exactly. That's what makes it so fascinating. Each state gets to tailor their spending to their own unique needs and priorities. It's a localized approach within this national game.
Can we dive into some specific examples? It'd be cool to see those different priorities in action.
Absolutely. You see a lot of focus on education. California, Georgia, Florida, Texas, they all earmark a big chunk of their lottery money for schools. It can be anything from funding K-12 to scholarships like Georgia's Hope Scholarship or pre-K programs. Some states create these big education enhancement funds. Then you have states like Colorado and Delaware prioritizing public services. Colorado focuses on parks, wildlife, making sure those outdoor spaces are well maintained. Delaware channels their share into health and social services, even addressing problem gambling.
That's pretty responsible, actually, using lottery money to combat potential issues arising from gambling itself. What about other states? Do any go beyond those general areas like education and public services?
They do. For example, Illinois puts some of their money towards veterans programs, as well as research into diseases like breast cancer and multiple sclerosis. And if we go back to conservation, both Colorado and Maine have created special conservation trusts and outdoor heritage programs, all funded by lottery proceeds. Even Arizona uses their share in diverse ways, from education to mass transit projects and homeless shelters. It's a real testament to how flexible this system is, how states can adapt it to their specific needs.
Amazing, a real patchwork of approaches across the nation. But let's shift gears for a bit. We've talked numbers, we've talked systems. Now let's talk about people. Those individuals who actually hit it big, defied those crazy odds. What are some of the more compelling winner stories from the last 5 years or so?
Oh, there's some great ones. They really highlight the life-altering potential, and also the choice some winners make to remain anonymous. Remember that Maryland winner from January 2021? $731.1 million. They kept their identity under wraps, but expressed a desire to use the money for family and community good. That amount of money is almost beyond comprehension.
It really is. What about some winners who are a bit more public with their stories?
Sure. Scott Godfrey, the retired aerospace engineer from California, won a whopping $699.8 million back in October 2021. He was pretty open about his plans, supporting his grandchildren's education and giving to local charities. Then there's the heartwarming story of those 15 coworkers from Pennsylvania. They called themselves the Lucky 15 and split a $206.9 million jackpot in August 2022. Many talked about paying off debts, securing their family's futures. A very relatable scenario.
Those group wins are always heartwarming. Shared luck. Any other examples that come to mind?
Oh, definitely. November 2022, a single mother of two in Kansas won $92.9 million. She had plans to buy a house, set up a college fund for her kids, and even help out her local food bank. A truly inspiring story. And then, just this February, a retired teacher in Washington state hit it big with a $754.6 million win. Travel and establishing a scholarship fund were high on her list. It's amazing to see those dreams take shape. But it's important to remember, many winners choose to stay anonymous, so these are just a few glimpses into those life-changing moments.
They really humanize this whole Powerball thing, don't they? Showing the potential for good, the different ways people navigate sudden wealth. So as we wrap up our Powerball deep dive, what are the key takeaways you'd like our listeners to walk away with?
First, I think it's crucial to understand that journey, how Powerball evolved from Lotto America to this multi-billion-dollar behemoth. And that two-drum system, that's a big part of what made those massive jackpots possible. Also, understanding how to play, knowing there are multiple ways to win besides that elusive jackpot, gives you a better grasp of the game's dynamics, and of course recognizing the economic impact, both the huge revenue generated for state programs and the ongoing debate about the potential downside for certain players.
Absolutely. It's about seeing the whole picture, not just the surface.
Exactly. We've seen how states use their lottery money, the different priorities at play, and those winner stories. Those are the human faces behind the numbers, reminding us of the hopes, dreams, and even the challenges that come with this game of chance.
It's more than just a lottery ticket, isn't it? It's a window into our society's relationship with risk, reward, and those big questions about how we fund public services. So here's a final thought for our listeners to ponder. Given this mix of individual aspirations and public revenue, what does Powerball's enduring popularity say about us? What does it reveal about our hopes, anxieties, and how we think about wealth and chance? It's something to chew on long after the winning numbers are drawn. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
It's been a pleasure exploring the world of Powerball with you all.
Until next time, deep divers.